So I'm going to start off with a massive thank you to everybody that has subscribed to the channel, everyone that follows me. We finally hit 1,000 subscribers and it's brilliant. I'm well chuffed with that. You know, and it's all thanks to you guys. I generally cannot thank you enough. I'm so chuffed with it. I'm just going to keep repeating myself, so I'm just going to finish on saying again thank you so much for all your continuing support. It is muchly appreciated. Right, so on to the video, and this is the last episode in the Knackers Yard series, which has gone through basically, it's kind of been a basically how-to series. So if this is the first episode you're watching, I'll put the first link to the first video right down at the bottom, so you can go from there. And we've been looking at general sort of weathering, you know, some chipping, you know, rusting, moss as well. We've been looking at stuff like that, and this one is going to be basically making a vignette for a model, and maybe one or two things you can put into it. But this is fun. This is really weird actually. All this series has come about is from this photo, which I took while I was on holiday, of a telegraph pole. It's weird sometimes how you can come up with things from just looking at something quite random as a telegraph pole. So yeah, that's how this this entire series pretty much has come about from. So we are going to be looking at a telegraph pole that is in the video. We're also going to be looking at, which is probably the large part of the video, at the start of the video, is building a tree. So you can, the way I've done this is kind of like, this is not exactly how you should do it, but more of a kind of like a guideline, because I think I could have actually done this a lot better than I did. It turned out brilliantly. It pretty much turned out about twice the size they actually intended it to be, but it turned out, you know, the way I wanted it. So that's what we're going to be looking at. We're also going to be looking actually at the main base itself. So we're going to be using some of this modelling foam. I didn't really mention that very well in this video, but it's like sort of blue modeller's foam. It's really good stuff. It's quite sturdy, but it's really good to sort of kind of like mould and play around with. And we're going to be using some plasticard, styrofoam plasticard, to make out the surround on the base, and we're going to also be looking at a bit of static grass in there as well. So without further ado, we'll get into the video. Stick with us till the end though, because I'll do my little slideshow on the finished model. So kick back, have a cuppa and a little bicky, and enjoy the video. So we're going to start by making the tree, and what I'm going to be using is this garden wire. Basically it's something I had to hand, but any kind of wire that's pretty, you know, strong and stable, you know, is fine. And what we're going to do is basically just make a load of twists, so to get all the wire to sort of, you know, stick to itself basically. And we'll do this main part for the trunk, get it to sort of whatever length you want, and then what we can do is we can move on to the branches, and that's basically doing the same thing, just loads of little twists. You can make a few loops here and there, and what you can do then is just snip those, and they'll make you some extra sort of little twigs, you know, to put our you know, canopy onto. So there we go, there's our tree all done and built. I've purposely left sort of a large footing on the bottom, because it's going to help us sort of do some work on the tree later on. Also will serve a purpose of helping it to secure it to the base. So what I'm going to do now is thicken the tree out, and I'm just going to use some tin foil for that. Depends on how big you want the tree. You can put a lot on or a little on. I mean, the tree as it is was fairly thick, so I didn't really need to put all that much on. I also did a bit around the branches, but admittedly in some areas I did make this probably a little bit thicker than I really wanted to. Once I finished tin foiling the tree, I used green stuff, which is 2-part putty. It's really good for sort of sculpting and moulding, so it was great, you know, for making the bulk of the tree. Now once that was all done, let it all dry for, I think I left it over a day or two. I sprayed the tree. Now I did spray it brown, and not thinking about it until the other half pointed out that trees aren't really brown. So for the time being I'm going to stick with the brown, and I will play with that a little bit later on. So what we're now going to do is we're going to use a product called seafoam. Now seafoam is a natural product. It's great for using for trees and bushes. You can even use them as trees on their own. What I would suggest, if you want to do that, you need to soak them in hot water for a little bit, stretch them out by tagging one end to a washing line and a bit of weight to the other, and it'll straighten out. Because you can see there, you know, it's a bit of a, it's a bit bent, but for possibly a bush or maybe an ivy, it's great for that sort of stuff. So all you need to do now is just clean it up a little bit. There are a few like little leaves in there, and all you need to do is just go in with a pair of tweezers and you know, just pull those little bits out, and then all we'll need to do is stick it to the tree. I'm going to use some super glue for that. Now I've actually not bothered sort of soaking it or anything, because for sticking on a tree, I find as it is actually quite good. It adds a little bit more of a natural look to the tree, you know, and you know, kind of way tree really should look. The stuff's quite easy to cut down as well, but like I said, all we need to do now is just stick it to the tree. But before we go into that, I just want to quickly mention, it's always good to keep these little offcuts, because they're great to fill in spaces in the canopy, and also they're actually just, again, quite good for making little bushes. So keep hold of them, don't let it all go to waste. You know, just keep them to one side just in case. Once everything's all dried, I'd actually spray the tree again, just blending all those bits of seafoam in to the rest of the tree and make it look like the same. I sprayed the entire tree with a mix of PVA glue and water, roughly around about 50-50 ish mix, just enough to spray it through you know, a squirty spray bottle. Spray the entirety of the tree in the stuff, and then sprinkle some flocking on. Now I used Woodland Scenics fine burnt grass, and quite literally just sprinkled it all over the tree, get it all over that canopy and make it all nice and thick. Once that's all done, sprayed it again with that PVA just to lock it all into place. And there we go, a nice looking tree. So next, moving on to one of our other details. Now I'm making a little telegraph pole, so all you're going to need is something like a cocktail stick and some reference photos if you're going to sort of DIY this yourself. I'm basing this off obviously a British telegraph pole, and yeah, just using some bits of wire, copper in the reference photos, you know, just to get the idea, you know, on how it should all go together. So with ours, this is quite an old type, and there's like a ring that goes around the top of the telegraph pole to connect all the wires onto. So once that's all done, I painted it in a sort of grey, browny grey sort of colour. I did another couple of extra details in. I did a little sort of junction box, which was once a German ammunition box, and then with a bit of wire just to sort of get that impression that, you know, electrical going or whatever to that box. And then because it's going to be sat next to the tree, I did exactly the same as I did in the car. Stippled on a bit of green to make it look like moss attaching to the telegraph pole. Now to try and add a little bit more realism to it, I wanted to have like a vine going up the tree. So we've got some little old bits of twig, super glued them onto the telegraph pole, painted it with PVA glue, leaving some areas for them twigs to go through, and then just sprinkled some slightly more coarse scatter on, and then sprayed it again with some PVA to lock it all in. Now for making the telegraph wires, this was quite fiddly because I needed 2 parts of wire. I needed a piece that was going to be like the telegraph line, and then another little bit of wire that goes into the junction box at the top. So as you'll see now, it's quite a little fiddly sort of process. I hooked it onto the top of that ring there, got my second bit of wire, tried to get it between the two, and with a pair of pliers twisted it so it all sort of bent in together, so it was sort of locked together. And then the extra bit I measured it out to sort of roughly the right length and put it down towards that junction box. So there you go, that's all done, just another 2 to go, which were also just as fiddly. So next we move on to the base itself. Now I've used some sort of like modelling foam. It's really cheap to get hold of, really good stuff, great for bases and all sorts of little details. I've used 1mm plasticard, cut it into the sort of right sort of depths now, because I've added a little bit of a raised area to make a bit more interest rather than just having a flat surface. I'll measure those out, particularly on the higher point, cut that strip out, and then later on we can mess with that and get the sort of the right contours, you know, to make the sides. I'll roughen up the back edge of the plasticard to make it easy to adhere to the foam. Did also cut a couple of slots in there just to give it somewhere to the glue to sort of go into. I actually use super glue to glue all this in. But as you can see now, we've measured out where the contours of the base goes, and then all we need to do is very simply just cut the stuff out. You know, it's fairly thick, but it's not too thick to get a good sharp knife through. It's also quite easy for cleaning up, you know, a bit later on if you haven't quite matched those contours to the base. So there we are, we've cut it out roughly to the right sort of contours of the bottom, and that's all now pretty much ready to glue into place. It says I use super glue because I just thought it was a better adhesion rather than using something like PVA glue. Now, as well, my wife will definitely tell you my measuring skills are absolutely shocking. Don't matter how many times I measure it, I will still cut wrong. So this is quite easy fix to fill, just by using some filler. Actually used Tammy's white putty. Just smoothed it into place. Also roughen up the edge before you put that down. I should remember to tell you that, because I always forget to do that myself. So it's got something to adhere to, and then all you need to do is just sand that out. Right, so onto the ground itself. Now I'm just using good old household plaster. Doesn't really matter so much of the consistency of this. You'll figure it out yourself on what you want, but I just need this just to sort of just cover the ground, so you can see it's fairly thick anyway. But just pour it out to the base, and spread that out. Again, a good idea, which I didn't do, is to sort of rough the surface up a little bit to make that adhesion a lot better and long lasting. Now, as you could see before, I'd marked out where I wanted the tyres to sink in to the model. I plastered over those, and just to make sure they sat right, I put some cling film around the car tyres and pushed it into place. So moving on to painting the base, I just use just a brown colour just for the bottom. You ain't really going to see it very well, but for underneath the car, it's going to be sort of like dead grass, so we used a bit of earth pigment and fixed that down with some pigment fixer. Now for the rest of it, as you can see, I've slapped down a good chunk of PVA glue. What we're going to do now is use some static grass to fill the rest of the area in. As you can see, I've also left a little bit up the top for the tree, so you get a little bit of a dead space there. But just plaster it with a bit of PVA glue, and then next we'll move on to putting the static grass on. So for the grass, I'm using 2mm static grass. This colour is actually Farm Summer, which is all I got, but it's not really the colour I wanted to use, so we'll fix that in a little bit, so I'll show you that. But yeah, just sprinkle the whole stuff on, obviously using a static grass applicator. You can pick them up quite cheap. This one only cost me about 12 quid, I think, off eBay. It's really good stuff. You can see you stick a little pin into the base and then just sprinkle all over the all over your PVA glue. Don't worry about making a mess, because we can sort this out in a second. Cleanup's really easy. Just use a vacuum. I'd suggest putting a stocking over the top, because this helps collect the static grass. I forgot to get mine because I was wearing them at the time. Also means you can use this later on. It also lifts the grass. Now, it says I wasn't happy with the colour, so I just sprayed it with a fairly dark green colour. I put my fence posts in because that's another little detail I put in there, just using some barbecue sticks, cut a couple of holes in, and just ran some bits of wire through. And then with the wire, what we want to do is make it look like it goes off somewhere else, so just clipping the ends of the wire into roughly where the ends of the base is, and it's starting to look like a nice little grassy area. So all that's really left to do now is place the tree in. Again, I use super glue for this. I'm using the prongs at the bottom of the tree to fix that into place, and my telegraph pole going in there now as well, which was fairly difficult, trying to get it through the canopy without breaking anything. So there we go, my friends. That's that little vignette all built and done. Before we go into the little sort of slideshow with the whole thing all together, just like to say again, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe to the channel. And again, for you guys that have been following us and subbed, thank you so much for getting to the 1k subs. It's brilliant. Just need to move on to the next milestone, which is more. Basically, I really want to grow the channel to try and help people out a lot, and to be fair, it's also quite a bit of fun doing this as well. But again, yes, thank you so much for watching. Again, hope you did enjoy the video, and here's the finished project, and I'll catch you again soon.